I believe that man has been to the moon, but I don't think man has sent a man to the moon and stepped on the moon. One of the most common reasons they say is the shadows here. And if you look at Buzz Aldrin looking at the flag here on Apollo 11, you see the ship has a shadow, and the rock has a shadow, and he has a shadow, but the flag does not. And that is a huge anomaly. Why wouldn't that happen? This is the most common way people prove that nobody's been to the moon. And what is that? Probably filmed in a studio, of course. Next up here, from Apollo 17, the ship has a shadow. There's many shadows everywhere, but not for the man himself. Like there, the flag has a shadow, but there's no shadow where this gentleman is standing, and all the shadows go that way. Yet he's standing there with no shadow. That's impossible. This is an official NASA photo too. So, what is that? That's impossible. I believe this is one of the more blatant ones. Here as well, we see a shadow from the man here on Apollo 17, not the vehicle. There's no shadow from the vehicle. The light's coming that way. Why is there no shadow from the vehicle? Again, two light sources, more than one light source, studio filmed. Nobody went to the moon, men. They just haven't. And we'll prove that in a big way today. The best proof you've ever seen later on in this video. And again here, there's one more. Many different shadows going different ways in this shot here. Once again, Apollo 17. Even at the end, you see where it's circled there. There's no shadow for that object whatsoever. And you see some shadows go at angles, some go straight. Once again, this one is, could be the shape of the land and not like that, but I'd like that. There wasn't no shadow there whatsoever. I don't believe that's the case at all. Those are the easy and most common way people prove it. But let's prove it through something else today. We're going to prove it a totally, completely different way. Here again, before we go there, no shadow from the lunar lander itself on the leg at the back, as you'll see. There's no shadow. They're going long this way at the lunar lander leg at the back. Absolutely no shadow, which is, once again, totally, totally ridiculous. One of the biggest things we can look at for the moon thing that bothers me is the size of the Earth in the shots, especially Apollo 17, where most of the shots were taken with the astronauts and the Earth in the same shot. And before we show you that, this is Apollo 11 moonrise. Now this is 9 miles above the surface when the Apollo command module, which is true, I believe, is flying around. You see how big the Earth is there, though. Imagine if you get on the moon there too. It's going to be big. It's much bigger than the moon. It's 6 times bigger, and it looks more so on a flat camera surface, as you'll see. So let's first look at perspective. And here's a shot of a volleyball. So once you capture an image of a round object with other objects around it for perspective, you'll see the ball's bigger here, but the man is closer up. So if that's a volleyball, it should be the same size. So if I size the two volleyball images together, then she should be similar size to him, if not perfectly the right size as the gentleman that's going to spike the ball. And so we'll just go ahead and do that here, as we'll overlay these images as we have, and we will show you the volleyball's the same size, and we'll see what happens. And then we'll see if will her head be way bigger? Will she be way bigger than a man, or will she be the right size? So is this a good way? Can we size like this with photographs that have not been altered, or just straight photographs, no matter what millimeter, but not overlaid two size kind of photographs? And when we overlay our stuff and move it around, we will not manipulate any particular part of the image by size. We'll move the whole image to size the ball, which we're doing here. And then we'll see what we got here. Now we did that already, as you see, and then as we move her face closer, well, yeah, she's the right size. Her the same as the gentleman. She looks like that they're the right size. So as you see, the ball was the same size. So that's to be expected. And we could do this with the moon too, on Earth. If people see some shots where the moon looks really big and some where it looks really small, but if we have a human being or something else in perspective, to put perspective, and we size it together, we will see that they look the same. As you see, that's why here we did here. Now have a look at this. Here's the harvest moon, these people watching it. So I want to look at the moon from the moon, and I'll tell you why after, because we're going to use it for sizing. So if I put this picture, I'll match that gentleman's size up to be the same size as the astronaut. Now this doesn't have to be totally perfect because the moon's so far away. We'll get a see, and then I'm guessing that's what the moon should look like size-wise from the moon, or Earth in this case. That would really be what it would look like from the surface of something, right? So you see there. Now we'll do another one. Now this next shot, the moon is much bigger. Okay, you see that here. But so are the people. So if we put it into perspective, because we have the people, we could shrink this down so their heads will fit in that astronaut helmet, or they'll be the same size as the astronaut. So let's do that and see what we get here. And this will work for anything you can do. As it work for the volleyball, it can work for other things as well. You'll find that this works almost this every time. This is called overlaying. And when you have a perspective to match up to, like human beings, then you'll see that you have an accurate size of what the moon would look like to this person of this size. The astronaut, those people now are that size, and the other gentleman made that size. And we'll prove that right here by showing you the two photographs that I just sized. One was the moon was quite small, one was quite big, but I've sized using the astronaut as my gauge, if you will. And you'll see what we get here is the moon, the two moons to be seen from the moon are the same size. It'll come up here shortly. There you are. And look at that. And so we realize that when we overlay buildings from different photographs or anything like that, if we size them in perfectly with the aspect around it, the perspective around it, that we'll get the true size of something. So this is basically in this picture now. If we leave that moon in the background there, what we'll have there is that's the size of the moon as you would see it from Earth, but this is from the moon. Now the reason we did this is the commander on Apollo 17, and here's a photograph of him with the man in front of him looking up at the Earth. But we know how big the Earth is compared to the moon, and these cameras they had on there are 35 and 70 millimeter, but straightforward shots and on this body. That's what he took this with, and I mean this Earth looks tiny, and it bothers me. So I thought, what would we do if we could put that Earth in perspective with this shot, which we can do, because we can size the close-up shot of the astronaut to this far-away shot, all Apollo 17. So that's what we'll do. We're going to move his head and his back, because they're wearing the same equipment actually, because they're on the same mission. And we're going to move, it's the same gentleman actually, and we're going to put that head and that flag the same as this is, and then that Earth will move in perspective correctly to what it would look like if it was like this, just as those moons did, as you'll see right here. And now what's happening in perspective now, look at this. That Earth is just tiny. You know, and think about that. Like if we moved up closer and took a picture of that, him and that Earth, that's what it would look like. And then this is like we've moved back. And of course it's going to be a little small, even though it's a constant size when we look at it from the sky. Once we capture an image of it in perspective to something, then that image remains true, as you'll see here. So that doesn't seem right. So this is from NASA. This is the Earth and the moon scaled perfectly. That's how big the moon is, and that's how big the Earth is in a scale in this photograph. And the distances you know already, so of what they are. So, but we can use these now. And here's what we'll do. By using these images of the moon here, I'm going to cut the moon out from that one and put it here, because we know that's the right size of the moon. Now, what should the Earth look like if the moon looks like that? That's what the moon looks like from Earth, and the Earth and the moon are the same distance apart. So what we'll do is we'll size the moon here, the same size as the moon in the photograph. And it'll be shrunk down, of course, and then the Earth will shrink down, but we'll get a true perspective of how big the Earth should be from the moon. Without question that this works, and you can try it yourself or try to debunk it, but you can't. Now, soon here, we'll shrink this down, and with a little bit of transparency on the moon, we'll overlap the moons together, perfectly sized. And then, of course, the Earth is going to shrink, but the Earth is going to shrink to the size that it should look from space. And if you remember that shot from the Apollo 11 Earthrise, you'll see that makes more sense, that that's the size of the moon. Even in any perspective, it can't be a tiny spot from the surface of the moon. I mean, even at any of those shots you saw, I mean, look how the moon looks when you look at it. It's never just a spot, and the Earth is way bigger, as you'll see here. As now we've overlapped this, we'll get it perfect. And now, there we go. Look at the size. Look at the size difference of that Earth. There's the moon. There's the Earth. Of course, we can't see the moon from the moon, but we used it. The reason we did that was to be able to size it. And we've sized that moon at several different levels. And now we know that that's what the Earth would look like in a photograph like this, exactly like that. And because we used the Astronauts as a gauge to get the moon, what it would look like for that size looking through the sky. So there we have it. Now, that just proves that the NASA photographs of Apollo 17 with the tiny little Earth in the picture are fake. And they are completely fake. And I think there it is. Look at the difference there. You know? That's ridiculous. And even if we pulled that forward, I mean, there's no way that's the right size. This is the right size for the Earth, without question. Without question whatsoever. So, this photograph should not look like this at all. There's no way, even that close up, if you're looking up at the Earth, which is so much bigger than the moon, as you see, right? It looks to be like 6 or 7 times bigger. Even that's a scale by NASA, so we're right about what it looks like. And that's the image this should have looked like, right there. And we'll prove that too by pulling this back to the other image and see if it can match up, where we've already scaled the Earth to that other gentleman. And I've moved forward here and done the same thing. As you can see in here, the man's just right in front of him, bent over, taking the picture of him. And so he's so close to him. So if he's looking right up, the Earth will be absolutely big. As you can see, there's the photographer, the flag, and the gentleman himself you can see in the picture. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this photograph with this head, and we'll move it back, and so with the flag and the Earth now the right size on here, and we'll prove it by moving it back into this other image. So that's what it should look like from there. Imagine if it came up closer and stood at his head. You know, it's always the same size, but in perspective of something, it will look bigger, of course, right? That's the trick of the eye, but they're actually the same size as I've shown you. This is much more realistic than anything they've shown there, and this is how we catch them faking. And then here I've shown you with the shot back here. Actually, I've pulled it back there, as you can see right there, and that's what it looks like, same size as the other one. We pull it back. Watch me pull it back slowly here. There it is right there. I've used the other image overlaid underneath to represent it. But there's that close-up now. It moves back. This is just pretending we're moving the camera back to where this one would be. And we've used a real picture of that one. Of course, I put the Earth in there myself. But oh, look at that. Those two men are the same size. The flag's a little smaller than the one because it is, at the Earth, are the same size. And that proves nobody been to the moon. This is real. It's not, but this is what it should be. This we know. It's what that shot should have looked like. And not like this. No way. And nobody else has ever done this kind of overlay technology that I'm using here, but it proves that no man has landed on the moon, which is what we thought. Of course, rockets did, but not men. Thank you very much for watching.